Welcome to this first of 3 conversations about the British Library's Unfinished Business, The Fight for Women's Rights exhibition. To tell this complicated, contested and massive story, the exhibition is organised into 3 thematic sections: body, mind and voice. We've collaborated with activists, experts and campaigners. And for these films, we've asked a few of them to select their favourite objects and to tell us why they think they're really important. Please do come and visit the exhibition in person if you can. But for today, we're going to explore the body section of the exhibition with 2 wonderful experts, Gabby Edlin and Debbie Challis.
Who are you and why are we here?
My name's Debbie Challis. I was on the advisory board for Unfinished Business, the exhibition we're sat in. My interest is in reproductive justice and women's reproductive health.
I'm Gabby Edlin and I'm the CEO and founder of Bloody Good Period, a charity that creates menstrual equity in the UK. We exist to make sure that nobody in the UK has a bad period. We want everyone to have a bloody good period. And we do that through providing free products to asylum seekers, refugees and anybody else who can't access them, and also through education and campaigning to make sure that actually we can shut our doors and no longer exist because it's been taken care of by the government. We brought along the Glampon, which is a giant sequined glittery tampon, which is used to promote conversation about menstruation.
What I love about the Glampon is the fact it's got sequins on it, and that's not just a facile glittery thing, it's the fact that it makes the blood kind of beautiful in a way. As you say, it opens up the conversation about, periods, but also about blood. And about the fact that, we just didn't see blood and adverts and things. It was always this kind of strange liquid.
The blue liquid.
Yeah, the blue liquid,
the blue
exactly.
Liquid. Exactly, yeah.
No, they've changed it slightly now, but it's still that kind of, it's almost like there's a non-comprehension that actually women who menstruate bleed, basically.
Yeah, and there's still this really strange, dichotomy of people will really happily watch violent films with blood splattered everywhere, but God forbid you show someone the contents of your menstrual cup. It's absolutely horrific. It's the only blood that comes out of our bodies that's not brought out by violence, and yet we have this absolutely horrific fear surrounding anybody seeing it, and all of the sort of taboo of leaks and anybody seeing anything to do with your menstruation is considered absolutely no-no.
But why do you think period inequality is unfinished business?
So the fact that there are still girls and women and other menstruators in the UK and all over the world, millions of people living in poverty who don't have access to high quality or even just quality period products, and the fact that they don't have access to any sort of education around their bodies is absolutely unfinished business and tells us really how far we need to go, even just by framing it through the period inequality lens. So what's so interesting about Anne McLaren's notebook that's here in the exhibition?
Well, it's an odd notebook in some ways because it's actually about embryo transfer in mice. But I really wanted to talk about it because I wanted to talk about reproductive justice. There's obviously the right to have contraception, the right for access for abortion, but also the right for fertility treatment and to have children in whatever way you can do. Anne McLaren's notebook, which is from the 1950s, is actually about mice, but it led the way for IVF. Because it showed that you could create embryos outside the womb and re-implant them back into a mouse, admittedly, but this led to the first live birth of an IVF baby just over 20 years later.
So what got you interested in reproductive justice in the first place?
Well, it was a combination of the professional and the personal. So I myself have been through infertility treatment, I've adopted, and I've also had children biologically. And at the same time as I was going through all of that, I was researching eugenics. And I realised that women had been forcibly sterilised, particularly in America and Nazi Germany and other places. Basic reproductive justice was coined by Black American women in the 90s to describe a full system of not just being about choice and the right to abortion or contraception, but also about having the ability to have children, to access fertility treatment, and to be able to bring up children and have babies so they have a healthy and equal life.
Why is reproductive justice unfinished business?
Reproductive justice is unfinished business because 5 times as many black women die in childbirth or through maternity-related diseases than white women. If you're poorer, you're much more likely to die in childbirth. If you have a baby, it's much more likely to be stillborn or miscarried or basically die in the first few weeks of life if you're in the lower socioeconomic classes. So it's unfinished business in this country if you're from those backgrounds. It's also unfinished business because women don't get the support to bring up children, they don't get the support with childcare. If they've got mental health issues, they often don't get the support to keep their children with them rather than stop them going into care. So reproductive justice is not just about contraception, though that is important. It's also about a fully sort of rounded form where we come together as a community to support women and men, and however they want to identify themselves, having a family in different ways. So it's good to see that there's a leaflet on the Depo-Provera contraception and the scandal around it included in this exhibition. Essentially 2 groups of women realised they were being given this long-lasting contraceptive, not realising all the side effects, not realising the consequences of it. And they were from India and from Scotland, both from poor backgrounds. And actually it's a great intersectional story in that they combined together to sort of fight being given this drug without being told about it.
What do you think was the intention behind giving these groups of women this long-acting contraception unwittingly?
I think in our healthcare system there is still a bias that some women should be able to have children and some women shouldn't, have children or have so many of them. And I think that bias is still slated towards whites, middle-class women having children, and basically minority women and poorer women not having children or not having so many of them. And I think that bias has been there all the way through, ever since maternal welfare first started. And it's great that we have maternal welfare and it's great that we have an NHS. But we've got to bear in mind that the founder, the person who came up with the Beveridge report, William Beveridge, he espoused eugenic ideas, and he actually saw welfare as being a way of having healthier children. And it's still framed, even though it might be seen as progressive eugenics, it's still framed in this kind of idea that some women should have more access to fertility and others should have less access.